Hi everyone, I'm Natasha Harris, also known as Sakhuja. Welcome to my artist talk at the Mastery Expressions exhibition held at Tembusu Gallery during Singapore Art Week 2025. Today, I'll be diving into the heart of my work, specifically my painting, Core Memory Letting Go. A piece that holds deep personal meaning and explores the journey of release and self-discovery. If you love art, storytelling, and creative journeys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Now, let's get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Natasha Sakhuja Harris. I'm a Canadian artist hailing from Toronto, Ontario, and the proud child of Indian immigrants who made Canada their home in the late 70s and early 80s. I am also the founder and creative director of House of Harris, a company dedicated to supporting creatives in their work and businesses. In addition to curating fashion and art events, I also create and sell my own artwork. I'll be sharing my journey as an artist, a story that comes full circle with the painting that was displayed at this exhibition. It's an honor to be among so many magnificent works, all beautifully curated by the talented Casey Chen. I am truly grateful for his incredible hard work and impeccable curation. He has truly made it a dream for every artist here to be part of Singapore Art Week. Like many artists, I've always felt that art was my calling. From a young age, it was clear. I displayed all the telltale signs, like choosing to lock myself in my room to draw rather than socializing with anyone. Fun fact, when I was in kindergarten, my teacher was so concerned about my apparent inability to hear her or my classmates that she called my mom in for a meeting. She was worried I might be deaf. My mom, naturally concerned, took me to an ear specialist, and after a series of extensive tests, the diagnosis was, I was perfectly fine. I was just ignoring everyone because I was so focused on my art. When I was 15, my art teacher recommended that I apply to a specialized art program in the city. My mom was very resistant to this idea because, as an immigrant, her perspective on success was deeply rooted in traditional career paths. She couldn't envision a future for me outside of that framework. To this day, I feel immense gratitude for my art teacher, Mr. Nelson, who never gave up on encouraging my mom to let me transfer schools. He believed my talent wouldn't be nurtured or valued where I was. He was right. To any teachers or educators who are listening to this talk, please know that your work has the power to transform a student's life in ways you might never imagine. Attending the specialized art school and spending just a few months truly nurturing my creativity opened doors I never imagined, one of which was Disney. I was recruited by them, and it was in that moment that my mom finally understood why I needed to be at that school. Being part of the film industry wasn't just an incredible experience. It was a dream come true to contribute to the magic I admired for so long. Since I was still in high school, graduating remained a priority. But the opportunity with Disney only reinforced that my dream of becoming an animator was achievable. After high school, I applied to the most prestigious and competitive animation program in the country. While I was waitlisted, I refused to let it deter me. Instead, I enrolled in an art fundamentals course to improve my skills and build a stronger portfolio. The following year, my hard work paid off. I was accepted into 2 animation programs. However, due to financial constraints, I had to choose the one closer to home, which was ranked second best. College was something my parents couldn't afford, so I had to find a way to fund my education myself. Being in the animation program felt like a dream come true, until it wasn't. The workload was so intense that I quickly burned out and became physically ill. I found myself questioning whether this was truly the path I wanted to take. Would I even be happy in this career long term? The more I learned, the more I realized that many animators are hired on a contract-to-contract basis, with no guaranteed salary. This reality began to sink in, and it made me reconsider my future in this field. That summer, I realized I needed to clear my head and find another creative outlet to refresh my mind. So, I decided to volunteer at the Toronto Rape Crisis Centre, Multicultural Women Against Rape. The center was brainstorming ideas to raise funds that year, and I proposed hosting a charity fashion show. I wanted to create a collection that would allow me to explore my creativity freely, using skills I'd put on the back burner while focusing on animation. The show was a huge success. I didn't expect it to gather as much attention as it did, and we even had a celebrity volunteer to host. With all the press, a new career was born. After much contemplation, I decided to drop out of my program and start my own brand. As you can imagine, that didn't go well over with my Asian parents. So, you're telling us you want to drop out of an art program you fought so hard to get into just to start a fashion business with no guarantees? Are you crazy? Just finish your program. I figured, if there was this much risk in animation, I didn't have anything to lose. So I went for it. And boy, was I glad I went for it. Here are just a few highlights from my 6 years in fashion: creating collections, costume designing for films, and crafting garments for celebrity press tours. I was on a high and felt truly validated for making the right choice at that time. In 2015, I was selected alongside 6 other Canadian designers from across the country to showcase SpongeBob SquarePants-inspired couture gowns for Nickelodeon. It was the perfect marriage of animation and fashion, as if this competition was made for me. I felt like I was on top of my game, until I wasn't. Now, I'm going to share an embarrassing story about failure, one I've never shared before. But I believe it's important to understand that failure is okay, and it's often the stepping stone to the lessons that lead to future success. Participating in this competition humbled me. It broke me. I didn't truly understand privilege until I found myself competing against some of the most privileged designers in the country. Designers who had family financially backing them up. While I was designing for this competition, I was also juggling several client commissions, including one that required intricate handiwork. At that point, I had made it a priority to say yes to everything in the hopes of growing my business, even if I didn't resonate with the project or the work. How could I say no to work when I was raised by hard-working immigrant parents? But as a result, I took on too much and couldn't complete my piece on time for the competition. I was ashamed, embarrassed, and scared. I remember standing in the green room with the other designers, shaking, while they casually discussed their fabulous vacations they had just returned from. Meanwhile, I had been up all night working on my dress, desperately thinking about how I couldn't risk my reputation as a designer. I couldn't let my business suffer by failing to deliver for a client. So my client's work took precedence over my own. And that was my mistake. I overcommitted when I should have turned the client down to focus on this life-changing competition. The moment had come. I was called into the judging panel with the Nickelodeon representatives and some of the biggest names in fashion. I unzipped my half-completed dress from the garment bag, and when one of the judges asked me why I hadn't finished it, I broke down crying. I couldn't even answer. How could they understand? I wouldn't be going forward to the final round. I may have not been able to strut my creation on the catwalk, but I will always be proud of the honor of being selected as a finalist. and that is something I'll carry with me forever. From this point, I felt completely broken. It felt like everything was falling apart. News broke that our fashion industry was dying, and Toronto was pulled out of the International Fashion Week calendar. If that wasn't bad enough, I got into the most horrific car accident. A truck collided with me on the highway, hit and run style. My car was totaled, and I couldn't even get out until help arrived. My shoulder muscles were ripped, and I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't sew. I couldn't draw. I was physically and mentally broken. I felt like a failure. I had to close my business and focus all my energy on recovering and dealing with the court case. I spiraled into a deep depression. It took me 3 years to heal. Once I started physically recovering, I then shifted my focus to mentally healing. During this time, I realized I had been so busy running my business that I hadn't truly lived. I hadn't traveled, hadn't committed to romantic relationships, and hadn't spent enough time with friends or loved ones. So, I made the decision to live. In 2019, I got engaged and enrolled at Queen's University to pursue my degree. Having dropped out of school earlier, I always felt incomplete without one. I decided to study psychology, as overcoming my own depression inspired me to help others. I also saw a potential career in art therapy. In 2020, amidst the pandemic, I won an award and grant from Mango and Marigold Press for a project titled Break Down the Bakwas, which translates to Break Down the Nonsense, addressing the stigma surrounding mental health in the South Asian community. As part of this, I created a series of artworks exploring the revolutionary nature of self-care. In May 2021, I eloped and got married, after the stressful ordeal of trying to plan our wedding, originally scheduled for October 2020. We finally celebrated our wedding in August 2021 when circumstances allowed. Shortly after, my husband received a work opportunity in Singapore, and we decided it would be the perfect fresh start for our marriage, especially after the challenges of the pandemic. The pandemic also allowed me to complete my degree virtually, a flexibility that Queen's University offered to students at that time. Unfortunately, they no longer provide this option, so I feel incredibly lucky to have had that opportunity. Finally, after 4 years, I graduated, amidst a pandemic, wedding planning, and moving countries. Once I graduated, I thought I deserved a much-needed break. And what's more relaxing than making art? I worked on several projects, including my painting, Core Memory Letting Go. This piece was something I created just for myself, a way to process all the recent life changes. I didn't expect anything of it. While I was working on this, I came across an open call for an exhibition and decided to submit one of my lino prints, Power. To my surprise, it got accepted. I also received a recommendation to be the fashion chair for the American Women's Association, thanks to my background in fashion, and I decided to give it a try. When I had my first exhibition, I didn't realize I couldn't sell my print after receiving interest. To do so, I would need to set up a business here, but the thought of opening another business felt daunting, especially after the trauma of Sakhuja designs. So, I put that idea on the back burner and decided to focus solely on the fashion show. The AWA fashion show was a huge success, and it reignited my passion for both fashion and the arts. I knew that opening a business was the way forward, especially since finding a traditional job here, with all the visa requirements, was quite difficult. Finally, my LOC was approved, and House of Harris was born. In just 6 months of launching my business, I had the privilege and honor of working with numerous organizations, brands, charities, artists, and creatives. And finally, why you're all here for this painting. Core memory letting go took me 10 months to complete. I didn't set a timeline for myself because I didn't want to rush it and risk hating the process. Instead, I let myself flow naturally into the rhythm of the piece. I wanted to give up multiple times and even question if I was in over my head, especially after nearly 10 years of not painting. There were moments where I honestly felt like I didn't know what I was doing. This was also the first time I incorporated sewing techniques into a painting, which added another layer of challenge. At times, the frustration built to the point where I considered throwing the canvas off my condo balcony. Thankfully, my husband talked me off that ledge, literally, and reminded me to step away, take a deep breath, and come back to it later with a refreshed mind. And because I don't gatekeep, I'm going to share the process of creating core memory letting go. It begins with a detailed drawing of the figures. I then lay down an underpainting in a golden brown hue to establish the tonal values, shadows, and light. Next, I apply the base colors to define the shapes and forms, gradually building the figures with nuanced tones and shading. Once the figures are defined, I introduce iridescent hues to highlight specific details, capturing glimmers of sunlight and the sparkling reflections of jewelry. After the painting is complete, I puncture small holes into the canvas in preparation for the thread work. Once the painting is varnished and fully dried, I sew threads into the punctured areas, introducing a tactile and dimensional element that adds depth and enhances the overall composition. This artwork represents a deeply personal journey, capturing a pivotal moment of transition, moving between worlds and homes. It reflects the profound process of letting go and transformation that this shift has brought, not only for me, but for everyone involved. In the composition, I depicted the bride's parents with 2 hands each, symbolizing their nurturing and protective presence. In contrast, the bride and groom each have 1 hand, coming together to signify their unity as they step into new roles and create a shared home. The ethereal background evokes the weightlessness I felt during this transition, while the tree motif on the mother's shawl grounds the moment, representing stability and a connection to roots. The lush green garlands surrounding the couple symbolize the growth and blossoming love they will cultivate throughout their journey together. Sunlit highlights were added to embody hope and the infinite possibilities of their future. A significant detail is the red-yellow ritual thread sewn onto each figure's hands, representing protection and internal bonds, symbolizing the ties that will forever connect the couple to their loved ones. Through this piece, I explore my emotions surrounding change, the enduring strength of tradition, and the boundless potential of love. Before I end the talk, I just want to leave you with a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert from her book titled Big Magic. This is a book I believe every creative needs to read. You will keep making your work, regardless of the outcome. You will keep sharing your work, regardless of the outcome. You were born to create, regardless of the outcome. I'm not sure what 2025 will hold, but I'm working on a few exciting projects. As my painting Core Memory Letting Go shows, I've learned not to set expectations, but to let the journey unfold. You can stay updated on my upcoming projects by following me on my Instagram socials. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who supported our Mastery Expressions exhibition, and as well as to all the organizers, directors, and staff who made Singapore Art Week 2025 such a resounding success. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments, and I'll be sure to check them there. Thank you for your support.